housing. A new poll by Ipsos for the New Statesman has revealed that voters across all voting demographics perceive a local housing crisis and, surprisingly, support more local house building. By 58% to 13%, Labour voters think there is a housing crisis in their area. And that's also true for the Tories, by 40% to 29%. More interestingly, far from being a NIMBY nation, supporters of every party back more house building in their local area too, with even the most sceptical party, the Tories, backing building by 42 to 33%. So is the NIMBY movement losing influence? Well, joining me now is John Myers, founder of the YIMBY Alliance, the foes of the NIMBYs, those who want more building, working to end the housing crisis, of course. Welcome to the programme, John. Great to have you. Is this good news? Is this a change? Are we seeing the NIMBY movement falter?
Well, thank you, Tom. Very hard to come on after the great Deirdre McCloskey, but I'll do my best. Look, I think it's good news that there's more support for housing, and I hope that's partly because the housing produced is improving. And of course, house building is a critical part of boosting growth. So when we had a house building boom in the 1930s, that boosted growth by about 1 percentage point a year. And there's almost nothing else you can do to boost opportunity and boost wages on that sort of scale, except by building more housing. But we can't be complacent about it because, unfortunately, support breaks down when you get to the nitty-gritty. Nearly 60% of social renters agree that there's a housing crisis locally, but only about 40% of homeowners think there's a housing crisis in their area.
So I suppose talking about this broad support, where, for example, by it's 4-3 that Conservatives would support building in their local area. I suppose if a proposal starts next door to someone, their view might shift.
That's often the way it works, unfortunately. People worry about congestion, they worry about parking, they worry about whether there are still going to be spaces in the local doctor or the local school or the local hospital. And so I think a really critical part of making sure we follow through with converting NIMBYs into YIMBYs is making sure that we deal with as many of these concerns as possible. So we make sure that there won't be increases in congestion. We make sure that there's proper provision for more doctors' surgeries, for more places in schools. And that, I think, will have a big difference in improving support for more housing.
And so whilst it does seem that housing has crept up the agenda, it's no longer an issue that's just affecting people of my generation. There are so many people in their 40s now in the United Kingdom who can't afford to buy a house, who are stuck in the renting trap. Do parties, in your view, of all stripes, do they understand the enormity of this issue?
I think they do, but they are stuck for options that they can bring forward that won't end up with losing them votes. And so they understand. I think every housing secretary has wanted to build more housing. Unfortunately, many of them have been fired exactly for building more housing. And so they're all really keen to find ways that bring forward more housing with local support. Look, there are many homeowners who are frustrated. They can't do more with their property. They're frustrated with the difficulty of getting permission for green renovations, for example. And so finding those ways of getting local support for more housing, I think, is key to help parties address this crisis. And
just in our final 45 seconds on the programme, what are the ways in which that can happen?
Well, there are a range of ways, Tom. I think one interesting idea the government's proposed is this idea of street votes, where you would let residents on a single street decide to allow additional housing on their street to share the benefits among themselves and with the community. Now, that's a new idea. It's had some success in other countries, but I think it's good news that governments listen to the cross-party alliance calling for trials of that idea to see if it can deliver more housing in a popular way.
Well, delivering more housing in a popular way does seem to be the holy grail of fixing this issue and, indeed, boosting growth, making everyone a bit richer too. John Myers, thanks for joining us on The Briefing this morning.